Okay, let's unpack this. We have covered a lot of ground on this show before. We've looked at corporate collapses, we've looked at the psychology of cults, and we've certainly dabbled in the world of high-stakes crime.
We have.
But the stack of sources we are working with today, it feels different. It feels like we are reading the rough draft of a John le Carré novel that was updated for the digital age and then, rejected by Hollywood for being just a little too implausible.
It does strain credulity, doesn't it? I mean, if you pitched this as fiction, a story involving a multi-billion-dollar fake cryptocurrency, a glamorous Oxford-educated genius, a disappearing act involving a budget airline, and a potential grisly execution by a Bulgarian drug lord,
Right.
you would be laughed out of the room.
But every single piece of paper in front of us says this is the reality.
We are talking, of course, about Ruja Ignatova. To the tabloids and the victims, she is the crypto queen. To the FBI, she is one of the 10 most wanted fugitives on the planet. And that is where I want to start, because that list isn't something you get on for, parking violations. It is a reserved seating area for the worst of the worst. We are talking about cartel leaders, terrorists, people who have committed heinous, violent crimes.
Exactly.
For a white-collar criminal, a fraudster, to make that list is incredibly rare. And for a woman to make that list is even rarer. I believe she's one of the only women to ever be placed on it since its inception in 1950.
And the Bureau recently decided to turn up the heat significantly. For the longest time, the reward was a standard, albeit hefty, $100,000.
Yeah, then it went up a bit.
Then it went to $250,000. But as of June 2024, the reward for information leading to the arrest of Ruja Ignatova is $5 million.
That number tells us a story in itself. I mean, wow. You don't put a $5 million bounty on someone unless you're desperate to close the case, or unless you believe that the network protecting them is so sophisticated that only a life-changing amount of money will crack it. That is turn on your boss money. That is betray the mafia money.
It speaks to the sheer scale of the damage, doesn't it? We aren't talking about a few $1,000,000 missing from a hedge fund. We are talking about OneCoin.
Oh, yeah.
If you were anywhere near the internet between 2014 and 2017, you couldn't escape it. It was going to be the Bitcoin killer.
That was the pitch. And the Times didn't mince words when they look back at it. They called it one of the biggest scams in history.
And the numbers are just staggering.
The estimates vary because the books were cooked so thoroughly, but we are looking at roughly $4 billion, potentially much more, siphoned from investors globally.
And the tragedy of that $4 billion isn't just wealthy venture capitalists taking a haircut. We'll get into the demographics later. But the sources paint a devastating picture of where this money came from.
It's heartbreaking.
We're talking about people in rural Uganda, people in the Rust Belt of America, people in crowded cities in China, people who, frankly, couldn't afford to lose $100, let alone their life savings.
It was a transfer of wealth from the desperate and the hopeful to a small cabal of criminals operating out of Sofia and Dubai.
And then the Vanishing Act. October 2017. She boards a Ryanair flight, which is a detail I still can't get over, the banality of it.
The Ryanair flight
from Sofia to Athens. She lands, and then she effectively ceases to exist.
And that is the fork in the road for our investigation today, because for years, the prevailing theory, the one the FBI still officially operates under, is that she pulled off the ultimate getaway.
Right, the mastermind theory.
That she is sipping champagne on a yacht, maybe with a new nose and chin, hiding in plain sight. But the alternative is much, much darker.
The Taki theory.
The Taki theory. The idea that she didn't escape, but was silenced. And not just silenced, but brutally murdered and disposed of by the very organized crime figures she thought were protecting her.
So our mission today is to navigate this labyrinth. We need to deconstruct how a woman who was arguably a genius, and I don't use that word lightly, went from a top-tier legal career to becoming a global pariah. We need to look under the hood of the OneCoin machine to see how it actually worked, or rather, how it didn't work. And finally, we have to confront that terrifying possibility regarding her fate.
It is a heavy journey, but I think it reveals so much about the nature of greed, the blind spots in our financial systems, and the very thin line between white-collar crime and the violent underworld.
Okay, so let's rewind the clock. Before the diamonds, before the yachts, before the FBI posters, let's look at Ruja Ignatova, the child.
Right.
Because usually when we profile scammers, we see a history of petty crime, maybe a lack of education or a desperate need to climb out of a hole. But Ruja's resume reads like she was being groomed to run the World Bank, not a Ponzi scheme.
It is the ultimate paradox of her character. She was born in Rus, Bulgaria in 1980 to a Romani family. Her father was an engineer, her mother a teacher, so, an educated
A
background.
solid foundation.
But the pivotal moment comes when she is 10 years old. The Iron Curtain has fallen, the Eastern Bloc is opening up, and her family emigrates to Germany.
And we have to pause on that dynamic. Moving from post-communist Bulgaria to Schramberg, Germany in the early 90s. That is a massive cultural shock.
Huge.
You are an outsider, you are an immigrant, and you are arguably starting with a deficit in terms of social capital.
Precisely. And in that environment, Ruja didn't just adapt, she conquered. We have transcripts and notes from her teachers in Schramberg. One of them went on record saying she was simply the smartest student he had ever taught.
The smartest ever.
Ever. She was skipping grades, she was devouring the curriculum, she was mastering the language. She was, by all accounts, a phenomenon.
But there is a dark undercurrent to that brilliance.
Yeah.
You flagged a specific entry from her school book in the notes, and I want to spend a moment on this because it feels like a rosebud moment. It feels like the first crack in the mask.
It is chilling. It's so revealing. She was writing a short bio of herself for a school project. She starts off with the standard good girl narrative. She writes, "I am always well-behaved and cheerful," and describes herself as faultless.
The kind of thing a teacher wants to hear.
Exactly, the perfect student. But then she breaks character.
On the page.
Literally interrupts herself on the page. She writes, "Stop. Maybe we should stick to the truth. Okay, fine. Maybe I did take pleasure in tormenting some students."
Pleasure in tormenting.
Yeah. And she continues, "I was always looking for the chance to spread new, amusing stories about them."
That is not just teenage mean girl behavior.
Yep.
That suggests a fundamental disconnect in empathy. It suggests that she viewed her intelligence not just as a tool for success, but as a weapon to manipulate those around her who weren't as sharp.
It is a glimpse into a Machiavellian mindset forming in real time. She recognized that she could control narratives, spread amusing stories, and that she derived satisfaction from the power imbalance.
You're right. If you fast forward 20 years, she's doing the exact same thing, just on a global stage with billions of dollars instead of schoolyard rumors.
It's the same playbook.
But despite that glimpse of darkness, the academic train kept rolling. She gets a scholarship to the University of Constance. She earns a PhD in private international law in 2005.
And I want to be clear for the listener, this wasn't a mail-order degree.
Oh, no.
This was legitimate, rigorous scholarship. Her dissertation topic is fascinating in hindsight. Lex causae in conflict of laws.
Which sounds incredibly dense.
It is. But to simplify a very complex legal concept, she was studying which jurisdictions' laws apply when a legal case crosses international borders.
Which is essentially the how-to guide for international evasion.
You couldn't write a better backstory for a future fugitive. She spent years analyzing the seams and the loopholes between different countries' legal systems. She understood where the gray areas were. She understood how to structure companies so that liability was impossible to pin down.
She wasn't just breaking the law later on, she was hacking it.
Yes, that's the perfect word for it.
She also picks up a master's degree in European law from Oxford University. So now she has the German PhD and the Oxford credential. Just absolute powerhouse of a resume.
And then she lands at McKinsey and Company in Sofia. Now, for our audience, we don't need to explain what McKinsey is. You know the reputation.
It's the boot camp for the corporate elite, the best of the best.
If you make it at McKinsey, you are set. You have the golden ticket. You are solving complex problems for the biggest entities in the world. The rigorous analytical grooming that happens there is legendary. It is not a place for sloppy thinkers.
So she has it all. The pedigree, the intellect, the career path. She could have been a CEO of a Fortune 500 company. She could have been a high-ranking diplomat. Why make the jump? Why go from the legitimate fast track to the gray zone?
I think it comes down to speed and maybe a bit of that arrogance we saw in the school book. The corporate ladder, even for a superstar, takes time to climb. You have to put in the years, play the game.
Right. There are rules.
The gray zone, the world of high-yield investment programs and questionable financial structures, offers instant gratification. We see the shift around 2012.
It starts with her father, Plamen Ignatov. They acquire a company, a metalworking foundry, I believe, and it goes bankrupt under very suspicious circumstances.
It was a classic bust-out. They bought a struggling company, loaded it with debt, stripped all the valuable assets, and then let it collapse, leaving the creditors with nothing.
And she was caught.
She was. In 2012, she was convicted of fraud in Germany in connection with that bankruptcy. She received a suspended sentence of 14 months.
Now, most people, if they are that close to prison, especially someone with her background, would be scared straight.
Absolutely.
They would retreat back to the safety of legal consulting. But Ruja seems to have taken a different lesson from it.
The lesson she likely learned was, I didn't dream big enough. Or perhaps, I need to structure it better next time. Because almost immediately after, in 2013, she gets involved with something called Bitcoin.
Bitcoin. It sounds like a generic brand soda version of Bitcoin.
It essentially was. It was a multi-level marketing scheme selling a digital currency. It failed pretty quickly, but for Ruja, it was the prototype. It was the dress rehearsal.
She saw the potential.
She saw the mechanics of how you could combine the fervor of MLM, that religious zeal of network marketing, with the mystery of cryptocurrency. She realized that if she could package it better, if she could be the charismatic face of it, the potential was limitless.
And that brings us to 2014, the launch of OneCoin. And the timing here is critical.
Perfect timing.
We're in the post-2013 Bitcoin boom. People have heard the stories of the pizza guy who spent 10,000 Bitcoins on 2 pizzas, which were now worth millions. The fear of missing out was palpable in the air.
FOMO is a powerful drug. Ruja Ignatova didn't just sell a product, she sold a second chance. Her pitch was specifically designed for people who felt they had missed the boat on the internet boom, missed the boat on Bitcoin, and were looking for that one winning lottery ticket.
She stood on stage, and we have to talk about the presentation.
Oh, the spectacle.
The ball gowns, the diamonds, the pyrotechnics. She looked like a movie star. She commanded the room. And you told them, Bitcoin is for the geeks. Bitcoin is for the anarchists. OneCoin is for you.
She positioned it as the Bitcoin killer. But the genius of the pitch was in the friction, or rather, the lack of it. If you wanted to buy Bitcoin in 2014, it was a hassle.
It was really hard.
You needed to understand private keys, you needed to set up a wallet, you had to deal with shady exchanges. It was intimidating for a layperson.
Ruja said, forget all that.
She said, we will do the technical stuff. You just send money to this bank account, and we will credit your account on our website with OneCoin. It was centralized, it was easy, and that convenience was the trap.
Because, and this is the part that still blows my mind every time I review the technical specs, there was no blockchain.
None. Zero. Zip.
How do you run a cryptocurrency without a blockchain? That's like saying you're running a library, but there are no books, just a guy describing books to you.
That is a perfect analogy. A cryptocurrency, by its very definition, relies on a distributed ledger. A blockchain is a transparent, immutable record of transactions that no single person controls.
Right.
OneCoin wasn't SQL database. It was a spreadsheet on a server in Bulgaria, which means Ruja Ignatova and her inner circle had God mode access. If they wanted the price of OneCoin to go up, they didn't need market forces. They just typed a new number into the column.
Today it is 5 euros. Tomorrow it is 6 euros.
Exactly. And the investors would log in, see the number go up, and get a dopamine hit. Look how much money I'm making.
But it was a simulation. It was a video game economy passing itself off as high finance.
Precisely. But because she had the credentials, the Oxford degree, the McKinsey resume people suspended their disbelief. They thought, well, she is a genius lawyer. She must have figured out a new technology that's better than blockchain.
The trust me factor was off the charts.
And to distribute this, she used the multi-level marketing structure, the network.
This was the viral engine. In a traditional Ponzi scheme, the fraudster has to constantly find new victims themselves.
Which is hard work.
In an MLM, the victims become the perpetrators. You recruit your cousin, your neighbor, your church group because you get a commission on their investment. It weaponizes trust.
It does. You aren't buying OneCoin because you trust Ruja, this woman in a ball gown you've never met. You're buying it because you trust your Uncle Bob who told you about it at Thanksgiving.
And it went global instantly. The documents show funds pouring in from everywhere. China was obviously a massive market. Billions came out of there.
A huge portion.
But we also see significant activity in Brazil, Pakistan, Hong Kong, Yemen, Palestine, Norway, Canada. I mean, the list is endless.
It creates a truly diverse portrait of victimization. And this is where the story gets heavy. It is easy to look at the glitz and the yacht, but the money paying for that yacht came from real suffering.
We have reports of people in rural Uganda selling their livestock, families selling their ancestral land. These are people living in subsistence economies, being told that this digital coin is their ticket to the modern world.
There is a heartbreaking account of a village where almost everyone bought in. They were promised that their investment would double, triple. They were waiting for the day OneCoin would go public and they could cash out.
And they are still waiting.
They are still waiting. Meanwhile, Ruja is buying the Divina.
The yacht.
A 44-meter luxury vessel. She is buying penthouses in Kensington. She's buying a mansion in Sofia and filling it with custom furniture and priceless art. The wealth transfer was absolute.
She was living like a queen, literally, the crypto queen, while her investors were slipping into destitute poverty.
And she kept this illusion alive for a surprisingly long time, from 2014 to late 2017. That's 3 years.
A long time in the crypto world. But the cracks were forming. You can't fake a blockchain forever. Eventually, people want to sell. They want their money out.
That is the math of the Ponzi.
Yeah.
You can delay withdrawals, you can create lockup periods, you can say, we are preparing for the IPO, but eventually the demand for cash exceeds the cash on hand.
And governments were starting to notice.
Simultaneously, the regulators were waking up. Banks were closing their accounts because of money laundering flags. Law enforcement in Germany and the U.S. were starting to share files. The walls were closing in.
Which brings us to October 2017, the climax. There is a massive event scheduled in Lisbon, Portugal. The promoters are there. The investors are there. The energy is high. Everyone is waiting for Dr. Ruja to come out and give the roadmap for the future.
And she is a no-show.
That must have been the moment the panic set in for the inner circle.
I can only imagine the chaos. But Ruja wasn't in Lisbon. On October 25, 2017, she was in Sofia. And she was making moves.
Why did she run on that specific day? Was it just intuition or something more?
It is highly probable she was tipped off, and this introduces a character who really cements the spy thriller aspect of this case, Frank Schneider.
The spy chief.
Yes, Frank Schneider was the former head of operations for Luxembourg's intelligence service. He was a man who knew how the deep state worked, how investigations were conducted, and how to evade them.
And he was on Ruja's payroll.
He was her crisis manager. I mean, think about that for a second. A cryptocurrency scammer hiring a former national intelligence director. That is a level of sophistication you don't see in your average fraud case.
It's unbelievable.
The U.S. prosecutors have alleged that Schneider provided her with confidential police reports. He essentially gave her the playbook of the people chasing her. He reportedly told her, the window is closing. If you stay, you will be arrested.
So she makes the decision. She leaves her office in Sofia. She leaves her mansion.
Yeah.
And most disturbingly, she leaves her family.
Her husband, a German lawyer named Bjorn Strahl, and their daughter.
Who was just a baby at the time.
The daughter was born in 2016. She was barely a toddler. Ruja Ignatova boarded that Ryanair flight to Athens alone.
The Ryanair detail always sticks with me. You have billions of dollars. You can charter a Gulfstream. You can buy a plane. Why fly a budget commercial airline?
It might have been tradecraft. Private jets leave a very specific paper trail. They require flight plans that are easily tracked by authorities.
Good point.
A commercial flight, bought under a slightly different name or just getting lost in the crowd of tourists, offers a certain anonymity. It's the hide-in-the-herd strategy.
So she lands in Athens. There are cameras that catch her at the airport. And that is it. That is the cliff edge. After Athens, the screen goes black.
The trail goes cold immediately. She lands, and presumably she's met by someone, or she gets in a car and drives to a port, or she gets on another plane. But from that moment in October 2017, there has been no confirmed, verified sighting of Ruja Ignatova.
But the machine didn't stop just because the driver jumped out. Her brother, Konstantin Ignatov-Konsti, took the wheel.
Poor Konsti. And I use poor loosely because he was complicit, but he was clearly the patsy.
He seems totally out of his depth.
He was the beta to Ruja's alpha. He didn't have her brilliance, and he certainly didn't have her exit strategy. He took over the public face of OneCoin, telling everyone, Ruja's just taking a break, she's working on the back end, everything is fine.
That didn't last long.
No.
Yeah.
The FBI caught up with him at Los Angeles International Airport in March of 2019. He was arrested, and the house of cards collapsed.
And he started talking.
He pleaded guilty to fraud and money laundering. He ended up cooperating, singing like a canary to the feds, likely because he realized his sister had left him holding the bag for a multi-billion-dollar international criminal enterprise.
The betrayal there, she's Shakespearean. She saves herself and leaves her brother to face the U.S. justice system.
It reinforces that psychological profile we talked about earlier, the pleasure in tormenting, or at least the absolute priority of self-preservation above all human connection, even family.
So Konsti is in custody. The DOJ unseals the indictment in 2019. Wire fraud, securities fraud, money laundering. The potential sentence is basically life, 90 years.
It is a hammer blow. And the Germans are issuing red notices through Interpol. The world is looking for her, but she's a ghost.
And that brings us to the status update. June 2022, the FBI elevates her to the 10 most wanted list.
It was a significant press conference. They made it clear that they consider her a continuing threat. And the gender aspect is notable. She stands out on a list usually populated by violent men. It shows that the Bureau views financial crimes of this magnitude as a form of violence in themselves.
The very real violence. And now, the $5 million reward.
Which leads us to the ultimate question, who collects it? Because that money implies that someone knows where she is. Or where she was.
Right. So let's look at the theories. Theory 1, the mastermind. This is the gone girl theory. She is alive.
This is what the FBI believes, or at least it is their operational stance. Special Agent Paul Roberts has been very clear that they are hunting a living fugitive.
And the logic holds water. She got away with a massive amount of liquidity. We aren't sure exactly how much, but certainly hundreds of millions in cash, crypto, and diamonds.
With that kind of capital, the world is your oyster. You can buy a diplomatic passport from a corrupt nation. You can undergo extensive plastic surgery, change your jawline, your nose, the color of your eyes.
Change your fingerprints even.
You can live in a compound in Dubai where extradition is difficult. You can live on a yacht in international waters, resupplied by tenders, never stepping foot on land.
It is the ultimate fantasy of the criminal mastermind.
Yeah.
Defeating the system and living in luxury. But there is a fly in the ointment.
A big one.
Even with a new face, even with billions, it is hard to stay hidden for 7 years. People talk, maids talk, crew members on yachts talk.
Especially when the reward is $5 million. That tests loyalty. Which is why many observers, including some very brave Bulgarian journalists, are leaning towards Theory 2.
The murder theory.
This takes us into the dark heart of the Bulgarian underworld. We have to talk about Christoforos Nikosamanatidis, better known as Taki.
Taki. He's not a tech bro. He's not a banker.
No. Taki is a legendary figure in Bulgarian organized crime, allegedly involved in cocaine trafficking, protection rackets, the works. He's considered one of the most powerful and feared drug lords in the country.
So he was her protector.
Initially, yes. The reporting suggests that when Ruja needed security, when she needed to launder the dirty cash coming out of OneCoin, she turned to Taki's organization. He provided the muscle. He provided the logistics to move her from Sofia to Athens.
But the theory is that the relationship soured.
Dramatically.
Why kill the golden goose? She was bringing in billions.
Because a golden goose that is being hunted by the FBI, Interpol, and half the world's intelligence agencies becomes a radioactive goose. She knew too much.
She knew where all the bodies were buried, financially speaking.
She knew how Taki's operation laundered money. If she was caught, if she was squeezed by the Americans like her brother was, she could trade Taki to save herself. She was a liability.
A massive one.
And the Byrd Report, that stands for the Bureau of Investigative Reporting and Data, published a bombshell in 2023. They got their hands on police documents that cited an informant.
This is the drunk brother-in-law story.
It is grimly classic. The informant claimed to have overheard Georgy Vasilev, who is Taki's brother-in-law, speaking while heavily intoxicated. And in that drunken state, Vasilev allegedly confessed that Ruja Ignatova had been killed in November 2018, about a year after she vanished.
So she was in hiding for a year, protected by them, and then they decided she was too much of a risk.
That's the theory. And the details provided were specific. The allegation is that she was on a yacht in the Ionian Sea, she was murdered, and then, to ensure she was never found, her body was dismembered and thrown overboard.
Chopped up and tossed into the sea. That is a message. That isn't just a killing, that is an erasure.
It is a brutal, final solution. It solves the problem of the body, it solves the problem of the witness. And it explains why, despite the massive reward and the global manhunt, there has been zero credible proof of life since 2017.
And there is collateral damage that supports this theory. The danger is real. We mentioned Kresimir Kemenov, known as Kuro.
Kuro was another major figure in the Bulgarian underworld, a rival to Taki in some respects. The word on the street was that he was preparing to talk to the Americans.
About Ruja.
He had information about her fate, and he was going to leverage it, likely to get a deal for himself.
And what happened to him?
In May 2023, hitmen entered his home in an upscale suburb of Cape Town, South Africa. They executed him, his wife, and 2 others. It was a professional military-style hit.
That sends a chilling signal. If you talk about Ruja, you die.
It certainly suggests that there are powerful people who are very invested in keeping the truth regarding her disappearance buried. If she was just hiding on a beach, why wipe out a crime boss in South Africa who wanted to talk about her?
It implies there is a secret worth killing for.
A multi-billion-dollar secret.
So we are left with this Schrodinger's cat situation. She's either the most successful fugitive in history, living the high life while the FBI chases shadows, or she has been dead for years, betrayed by the sharks she tried to swim with.
It is a mystery, wrapped in a scam, wrapped in a tragedy. And frankly, both outcomes are disturbing.
Let's spend our final few minutes reflecting on what this all means, because we started this deep dive talking about a prodigy, a girl who could have been anything.
That duality is what sticks with me. You look at the photos of her at Oxford in her graduation gown looking proud and legitimate, and then you look at the photos of her in the ball gowns hawking a fake coin. It is a tragedy of wasted potential.
She had the intellect to cure cancer, or fix the energy crisis, or negotiate peace treaties. She chose to steal.
And not just steal, but to exploit trust on an industrial scale. OneCoin didn't just hurt wallets, it hurt the concept of innovation. It took the excitement people felt about a new technology cryptocurrency and weaponized it against them.
It made people cynical. It made people afraid to trust the next big idea.
It really did.
And it preyed on the vulnerable. That schoolbook entry, pleasure in tormenting, it manifested as a pleasure in dominating. She dominated the uneducated, the hopeful, the desperate. She looked at a farmer in Uganda and saw a mark. That is a specific kind of evil.
It is. It is the evil of the predator who wears a suit, or in her case, a diamond-encrusted gown.
So where do we leave the listener? The case is technically open. The FBI reward is active. Europol had her on their most wanted list for a bit, then took her off for some reason, which is a whole other mystery.
Yeah, that was strange. But I think we leave them with the question of justice. If the Taki theory is true, if she was murdered on that yacht, is that justice? Is being killed by your criminal associates a fitting punishment?
Or is it an escape?
Exactly. Is it an escape? Because if she is dead, she never had to sit in a courtroom, she never had to look her victims in the eye, she never had to serve a day in prison.
The secrets of where the billions went would have died with her.
Precisely. The money is likely gone, absorbed into the dark economy. The victims get no restitution, no closure.
And if she is alive?
If she is alive, then she is the ultimate test case for the axiom that crime doesn't pay. Because right now, for her, it paid billions. If she is sitting in a villa, watching CNN, seeing her face on the most wanted list with a $5 million price tag, I wonder if she feels fear. Or if she feels that same arrogance she felt as a 10-year-old in Schomburg.
I'm smarter than all of you.
That has always been her driving force.
Well, if you are listening, Ruja, and hey, we have a global audience, so who knows, the FBI is looking for you. And for everyone else, if you know something, that $5 million is real.
And for the rest of us, it's a reminder. If someone promises you a guaranteed return that will change your life, and they tell you not to worry about the technical details, well,
stay skeptical, stay curious, and thanks for diving deep with us.
Until next time.